Yay! So we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another workshop. Today we're joined by Bulgarian Debate Champion, Nikolay Angelov. And today he will tell us about his experience working in debates and public speaking, and also participating in different mediation competitions. Welcome, Nikolay. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm very honored to be participating, and I'm doing quite well.
That's great to hear. Well, first, I would like to know what motivated you to start doing public speaking and debating in the first place.
Yeah, well, apart from liking the attention, but, I think that from a very young age, I always liked the idea of exchanging arguments. I was the kid that when every little kid in the classroom was wanting to be like Batman and firefighter and things like that, I wrote an essay when I was 7 years old or something like that, that I want to become a lawyer and get my own house and move out and things like that. This is something that my mother reminds me a lot. But yeah, through the years, I realized that debating in particular is a very interesting, let's say, we call it an academic sport. I'll say that it's something like that
Mhm.
for sure. And it's definitely something that I really loved from the get-go. I actually wasn't very good at it at first, but I mean, I realized that when you enjoy something, you get better at it with time. So why not? So apart from that, uh, I think that I actually, when the Bulgarian Debate Association was being created in Bulgaria, which is around 2011, I also, without knowing that, I was in the seventh grade and created the first independent debate club here in my school in Bulgaria. And from that on, it's been different things, but generally, I've always loved speaking in front of people, and I mostly enjoy now the intellectual challenge, different perspectives, and the ability to be heard, which I think that especially today everybody wants to be heard. But I think that if somebody wants to be heard, he needs to also spend a lot of time practicing how he can actually do it well, but also what to say, because I think that this is a very misrepresented part of debating. It is actually much more about what you say than how you say it in many
Mm.
perspectives, especially because in debating you mostly have judges who are listening to you, who are experienced and are not going to get you to get away with things. So yeah.
That's really interesting because, um, for example, in public speaking, I normally focus more on the way that I give my speech, but I know that debating is different. So, what do you think about that? Do you think that in public speaking, there are different things that you should focus about?
Yeah, so it's very weird because when you start debating, I think this was for me. You realize that you have to work a lot on what you present as an ideas, because otherwise, regardless of how well you say things, in particular in the formats that we are doing, there is a judge there. In many of the cases, especially if you're in a finals or in a very experienced room, there are three judges, sometimes five, sometimes seven,
Mm.
and everybody is writing very, very closely what you say. After that, they have a very long discussion. Sometimes a discussion can take up to 40 minutes, 2 hours, something like that, where they pick away everything that's been said in the debate. So you have to be extremely careful with your words and extremely strategic in how you set up your arguments because of that. So when I started, I mostly focused on that part,
Mm.
and it got me to a pretty good level, at let's say above average as a debater. After that, you realize that regardless of how smart you are and how well you know about things, you only have, at least in the format that I mostly debate in, around 7 minutes of speech. And as a team, you have probably around 14 minutes. So in these 2 7-minute speeches, for some people it might sound like a lot. I think for a person who is a bit more experienced with oratory, you know that it's never enough in terms of time. And when you get to that point, you realize that it's also a lot more things that you have to think about. So how exactly you have the greatest idea out there? It's very strategic. It's very important, but you need to think about how you present that idea. You need to use the right wording. You need to get in some buzzwords out there that take the attention from the judge who is listening to you. And this is the way that when you're like working with an audience. So there are a lot of oratory things, I say, that actually get more and more important when you get to that level, because in a very experienced level, everybody is smart. Everybody knows a lot of things. Everybody's going to say something that is fairly well prepared, that is fairly well done in terms of logical reasoning and things like that. So you need to get every edge that you can use in order to become better and win debates and get to that next level, whatever that may be. So I think this is how basically in debating those two things come together, especially when you realize that as an audience or a judge, we have attention spans. And even if I'm writing down everything you say, I cannot write everything you say, actually. And also the way that I understand something while you're talking about a lot of things, because most of the time debate topics are kind of complicated. There's a lot of different things that you need to think about. That, for example, in the same debate, you can talk about society, you can talk about the economy, you can talk about morals and how this affects when you're talking about, let's say, implementing a certain policy. So at that moment, you need to be careful, because maybe some ideas are very good, but maybe you don't have the time to explain it that well, or maybe in certain cases you will try to explain it one way, but the judge might misunderstood you. So it's very important to use these particular oratory skills, let's call them that, in order to present your ideas the best way possible. And that is where I think debating comes real heavy in the real world.
Yeah.
It firstly teaches you how to think logically. So teaches you how to analyze the situation, how to think about trade-offs, for example, when you're making a decision. And that's very important, because we cannot only speak beautifully and hope that things are going to be better. But at the end of the day, when we are trying to convince people of our opinion, or how we should act, or what we should do, or even what's, let's say, moral, we also need to have a strategy as to how to present our ideas. And this is, let's say, it's not about like scamming an audience into like saying the most beautiful things so they believe you in the moment. It's about you understanding that communication, because debating, I think, it's a form of communication, as anything else, is about trying to get through to people. And this cannot happen only with the best ideas without any good explanation, and the other way around. So I think that that's kind of my answer here. And also, you need to stop me from point to point in this interview, because I'm a debater and I will talk a lot. I will talk a lot. so this is definitely important. But yeah,
I mean, I like that. I like that because it's very interesting that you have like very little time to prepare in the moment. So and you need to stand out. So there are tons of things that are happening, that are going on, and it must be really stressful. But then you communicate to the audience and to the judges, and I feel like this is such an important moment. It's such a powerful moment that you have, and I can feel your passion when you're telling me about it. So it's really inspiring. Do you think that debating is something that should be practiced internationally and in every school. Do you think that?
Yeah, excuse my unprofessional language, but hell yeah. I think that I think that debating, at least for me, it has completely changed me as a person. How I look at the world, what I think it's important,
Mm-hmm.
uh, in terms of even like my own beliefs and how I should approach life in general, and how things should life work. It makes you think a bit more outside of the box. It makes you come to the same terms with people, because I think that a very important part in the debates, I think that I do at least, is that
Mm-hmm.
in many cases you don't get to pick your position. That means that you're going to be defending things that you don't believe in, that are not in your opinion. And in the beginning, it's very hard. Then it gets very interesting because it's a challenge. But beyond that, you start to realize that on a lot of topics, not every topic, but many topics, there are valuable takes on both sides. And
Mm-hmm.
it makes you as a person go more into the middle, because you understand nuance. And I think nuance is something that our society as a whole lacks. It's people uh, are just maybe wired in a way that they see things
Yeah.
as black and white. Especially,
Mm-hmm.
you can see it in political discussions, you can see it in talking with your sibling or your best friend and things like that. And when you are taught nuance, it's very hard to stop thinking that way, especially if it's something that you really start to think over.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is like one of the biggest reasons why I think that debating should be taught everywhere. And at least you should kind of get uh, educated on the idea of debating, how it works, try it out a bit, and be supplemented as a form of discussion. Because I got to introduce to debating in a course about writing essays.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's yeah.
I was in the sixth grade. I had a
Uh-huh.
teacher who was preparing me for basically becoming good at writing essays.
Mm-hmm.
So what the teacher did is just said, okay, here we're gonna have a discussion. We're gonna have a debate. She separated the kids into two corners of the rooms. She gave them 10 minutes. Just think of arguments. And I was hooked from that point on. But the biggest important thing is that, like, if you think about it, essays and just writing things are not so connected with debating. It
Mm.
couldn't be further from the truth. It's I think that, like, even if you talk it pragmatically, the way
Yeah.
that my ability to express ideas on any form, be it write an essay or talk on a video or have a conversation or even approach logical problems, be it in law or even mathematical problems in some cases,
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely helped me a lot, because at the least, it's an exercise that challenges your logical thinking and makes you analyze different situations, different problems, circumstances. And this is something that can be applied throughout, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I also believe that debating is really important, especially when kids are little, and because it's really hard in this world to be open-minded and accept different perspectives. And it's great that debate teaches us to be open-minded and look at things from different perspectives, because right now the world is very polarized. So everything has political like problems, and like, for example, climate change is polarized. Some people believe in it, some people don't, and instead of working collaboratively, it becomes a problem. So I do think that that debating should be taught in schools and should be practiced, especially when kids are very little, so that afterwards we can all grow up to be more tolerant and open-minded. And I really want to know what happens when you're debating with students from other countries, because the cultures are different. Everyone, I mean, they have different languages. Their mother languages are different. So how does that work?
It's a fun experience. Um, well, it's difficult at first. I would say that it's first of all, like when you're younger, you need to firstly be more comfortable with the language, because if you have an international competition, obviously most of the time it's going to be in English. I think that this is as we are growing more and more into a global society,
Mhm.
that's less of a problem. We have much more things to, let's say, bond over or understand, much more examples that are global that kind of everybody knows about. So this helps a lot. I think that it would have been much more difficult, let's say, 50 years ago.
Yeah, that's true.
Beyond that, you also have to be respectful of that. You need to understand that because there are differences in cultures and understanding, and even in, let's say, political views or even religious views, etc., etc., some people are going to say some things that might be hurtful to you.
Hmm.
And first of all, like, you should also yourself, to a certain degree, try to take that into account before actually saying some stuff. But also, I think that it works in both ways. You also need to understand that I might say something, especially during a heated debate, that might be offensive to you. You need to take into account that I probably, my goal wasn't to offend you, and it probably is also connected to emotion, but also just trying to use the simplest words possible because you can understand.
Yeah.
Because, for example, this is like, let's say, one of the problems I think of the debating community.
Hmm.
Not so, I think that it's getting better through the years, but obviously, when I, as a Bulgarian from Eastern Europe, am trying to talk about multiple topics, I'm going to use different words that are, in some cases, more simple than, let's say, a native speaker from the UK debater who is sometimes using very big
Fancy words.
words that
Yeah.
are very fancy and things like that.
Hmm.
And I think that with time, people have realized that, yeah, they sound pretty good, but at the end of the day, you also have to think about what people are saying. And with that, I think that communication has gotten a lot better. I
Hmm.
can actually give you an example. The so the way that the World Debating Championship and the European Debating Championship is structured is that you have separate categories. These categories are based on your language. The open category is for people who are native to English
Hmm.
and uh, everybody else. So everybody gets to compete into that category. Then there's a separate category that is for English as a second language, and another category that only exists in the World Championship, that is English as a foreign language. So it depends on your level of English. Now, you are able to compete for all categories. Everybody is mashed into the same tournament. But then when we get to the stage of going to separate finals, you there these categories are created so that people that are not so experienced with the language are able to also compete, because it is an advantage when you're debating in your own native language.
Hmm.
I think that everybody can understand that, and everybody who is uh, going to be using one or the other is going to always prefer their native language. So this is a way in which, like, things are gotten better with years. So
Hmm.
now, the last European Championship that we had a couple of months ago, actually, I think that almost all of the teams in the final, except maybe one, weren't actually native speakers. That means that they were able to beat most of the native speakers in
Yeah.
debates and actually get to the final. And I think that this is a very good example of how things are changing specifically in the debating community. But I think that also, like, you can see that when we acknowledge that there are certain problems, we can actually, as a community, deal with them better and make it more about the content of what we're saying than how things are said, because there's always going to be certain biases when you are listening to a beautifully voiced native speaker and
Yeah.
things like that. So yeah, it's tough, but it's also great. And also the friendships that come to in terms of meeting people from all around the world and how they change your perspectives on life are, I think, that's really powerful and are really important, and also a lot of fun. So yeah, this is my take on this particular.
Yeah, it's really interesting because you have to keep in mind the culture, the language, and it's really great that now, since most countries um, like have English at schools, like they teach English. This opens the world to so many opportunities, and it creates bonds between people. Like, for example, you and me, now we're speaking and we're talking in English, and it's incredible. And it's really great that different, like, universities and organizations are um, are doing all of these competitions to promote communication and debating and public speaking. So that's really great. And I want to know what happens with the economy, like with the mediation competitions.
Yeah. Well, mediation competitions are fairly different.
Hmm.
Uh, I haven't participated so much in mediation competition. It's fairly a new thing to me. I did participate, I think, in the biggest one in the world. I think it's one of the biggest one in Europe,
Yeah.
uh, in Paris, which was in February, right before Corona kind of
Yeah.
uh, happened.
Uh-huh.
So I got to travel to Paris before that. So thank you, mediation. But apart from that, basically, you get cases which are, in this particular case, international business disputes. They have a little bit law in them, a little bit of just trying to figure out how you can work with the other side and come into an agreement that works for both sides. There are, again, judges who are listening throughout the mediation discussion, and there's a mediator. And you participate as negotiators. So your goal is to work with the other side, try to come up with the agreement, though this only happens if the agreement is good for you also.
Mhm.
And the way that you win, if I can say like that, is interesting because it's not about particular goals. It's not necessarily about, at least in these particular competitions. There are multiple other variations of this, like, let's say, only negotiation competitions, where it's much more about getting to a particular goal for you. So
Mhm.
if you're able to get away with a very good deal, you win. In this particular scenario, it's not about that. It's about actually showing particular skills that you have in terms of when to change the pace of the discussion, when to be more diplomatic, when to not be diplomatic in certain cases when you have to preserve your interests, when to come up with particular discussions. A very interesting a skill is how to use the mediator, because you have experienced mediators in the competitions. All of them were actually professionals who are mediating in some cases hundreds of millions of dollars of
Mhm.
companies that are trying to come up with a solution for both of them. and they have important problems, and how to use that person to help you get through to the other side. So it's basically uh, every communication skill that you are possessing, you're trying to show it, and you're trying to um, get better with every round at it. And there are different circumstances. In some cases, you're going to, there's also a bit of acting actually, because there is a CEO of the company and there is a lawyer of the company. So the lawyer in certain cases have to be harsher than the CEO, and the other way around. There are multiple ways that you can actually strategize to participate in the discussion. You're in some cases going to be needed to, let's say, express emotion, because you, maybe the case is a bit more about you want something to happen because it's important to you, but it's not about, let's say, an economic interest of yours.
Mm-hmm.
So this is also an interesting part of mediation actually.
That's
And
really cool.
uh, it's a very good experience.
Mhm,
And what I can say is that it's a very interesting way to, I think for me it was very hard at the beginning, because it's very different from debating to a large degree. It's not about arguing people, because what I did in the beginning was, I just, when somebody says something, I explain to them why this isn't a logical way to go about things, or
mm,
why their idea wasn't good, or why we should do this, and this is probably better than this. And it comes down as an argument rather than trying to get to the same side.
mm,
So you need to be much more diplomatic and use a different set of skills than debating, but still also be logical when actually a deal is being made at the end of
mhm.
a certain discussion.
And how
Uh,
did you learn this? How
well, yeah,
because it's a lot.
we had great coaches,
Mhm,
and we did a lot of sessions uh,
mm,
about different things, different cases, using different strategies, pairing with different people. There's a lot of things that you need to do. There's also a bit of showmanship. Sometimes you, for example, take a break in a particular moment to strategize, sometimes not to strategize, but to send a message to the other side. It's,
mhm,
yeah, it's a different game, but it's very
mhm,
fun, and it teaches you a lot about communication, especially having in mind one of your previous questions. It's also interesting when you are doing something like this
mhm,
with people from all around the world, because in debating, it's a bit more set of rules. They're just explaining the idea. But when you're actually on the table communicating, and for example, in certain cases, you have to be very careful to, when you're trying to be diplomatic, for the other side to understand that you're trying to be diplomatic. When you're trying not, when you're trying to be harder on them and, let's say, stand your ground, you also need to communicate that. And when there's people from all around the world, maybe people who are more expressive in certain cases, even like in the particular individual, because let's not go into particular stereotypes about people from that country or other
yeah,
country, but you
mhm,
can definitely agree that there's going to be a wide range of personalities out there. So you also need to think about that, and sometimes it's unpredictable. So how you handle these situations is also very interesting and challenging.
yeah. It sounds very interesting because at first, I thought that it sounded very intimidating, like very serious. But now that you're telling me about it, it sounds really fun. Well, obviously it must be really stressful, but since you're doing role play and you're acting, it must be really fun to play different characters. And has theater helped you? Did you go to theater courses or things like that, or did you just learn by experience?
Um, hmm, no, I haven't gone to theater courses,
Hmm.
so that's for sure one. But I do actually love theater most, and acting as a whole is something that has been very interesting to me, because I love movies and TV shows, and it's always been something very interesting to me. Uh, when I was younger, I also I wrote and directed a small play for one of my projects. So this is
Oh.
it's something that I really like. I wouldn't say I'm good at it, but I definitely enjoy it as a process.
Mhm.
I also acted a bit in this particular project.
Mhm.
Then I realized that I might be better at directing than acting. But this is for another conversation, I hope.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always come a bit more natural to me, I
Mhm.
guess, and I've tried to use it. It also it's also a lot about, I think that in general in public speaking,
Mhm.
about being confident and not trying to take yourself too seriously.
Mhm.
I, this is at least how I approach things, even when I'm doing very serious things. At the end of the day, if you're too serious about something, that's great,
Yeah.
and you should show it with how much hard work you put into preparing for it, how much you think every possible situation, be it in debating or mediation, but
Mhm.
that shouldn't come into the expense of you not enjoying the process or even not enjoying yourself in the particular moment. And if
Yeah.
you're able to combine hard work, preparation, and being serious about something, but then also understanding that you need to, for example, when things don't go your way, to move on, it's very important. Because let's say the European Debating Championship, it has 9 rounds before
Ooh.
you start going to partial quarterfinals, semifinals, finals, etc., etc. If
Oh.
you are speaking in both categories, you end up going to quarterfinals in the one category, then quarterfinals in the second category. So there are so much debates out there, and
Mhm.
you're inevitably going to lose. You're inevitably going to screw something in some of the debates, and it's very important to also be mentally prepared for these situations. uh, so that's why I think that not taking yourself too seriously comes into hand, particularly in those situations.
Yeah, I agree because this is a learning experience. So sometimes you may lose but that's okay because you gotta keep on participating and it's true. I mean, debating is something that we see in our daily lives and together with public speaking. So if you lose a competition, then that doesn't mean that you should stop. And it's really great that you're mentioning this because it must be really hard for some students at first to 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 keep on working and not giving up. Do you have any tips that you could give young
Or
students?
I think that it's with everything. And if debating, my debating career has taught me about anything, it's definitely that it takes a lot of mistakes to get something right.
Mhm.
And uh, you need to experience that in order to get better, because regardless of how good you are at the start, you're going to hit a point in which you need to reinvent yourself. uh, I think that with me, this has been like a lot of time. For example, I've debated in firstly mostly in Bulgaria, in Bulgarian
Mhm.
language. Then when I started to go into international competition, it's a whole different experience. It's a whole different game. People use different strategies. You need to be prepared for all of those things. So in certain cases, even in the last years, I had to completely reinvent how I look at the game, what I think it's important. Everything I even started to watch like workshops that are for complete newbies, only to get that particular advice that actually can help me see things differently, and so on and so on. And in some cases, it's even like it's pretty hard. Like me and my debate partner, uh, we went to a very big international competition, one of the biggest in Oxford University, and we ended up. Before that, this was like our first big major competition on the international scene. So we prepared a lot, but we also understood that the probabilities of us doing well are very low, and because we've only just started participating. Then we go to that competition, we do great. We go to the finals. So we're very like, oh my gosh, we got this thing. We're great. Then after that, we didn't go. So like in debating, we call it a break. So when you go to, let's say, a quarterfinal or a semifinal, basically come through after the preliminary rounds, we break. After that competitions, we didn't break at a tournament. In the next 8 or 7 tournaments, something like that. Nothing. Completely devastating. Even at like smaller tournaments, like something was wrong. But we just kept at it. And we, after every competitions, we talked about it. We were looking at it in the details of why exactly didn't this happen. When we were extremely mad with some judges that they didn't really understand what we were talking about, we talked to them after the debate. We told them, how did you see what we said? What we said, how we could do it better, how we could improve this, and it completely changed the way through this process of how we look at the game. And I think that if we weren't like set on a goal, which is we want to break at the European University Debating Championship, because no Bulgarian team has ever done it in the history of the competition. And this is like what we wanted to do from the get-go when we decided a year ago that we want to do it. This was our goal, and we kept at it. And it was very frustrating, especially when you get yourself to do very well, and then you continuously do very bad, and you lose, and you lose, and you lose. It's very important to, let's say, believe in yourself, however that is a cliche, but also really think about, be critical of yourself. Okay, what happened here? What exactly I could have done better?
Yeah.
And when you do it enough times, I think at some point it's becomes second nature to eliminate more and more mistakes. And I think that even now, I've barely scraped the surface of what is to be a good debater and how I can actually improve. But it has taken me a lot of time. And being mentally prepared in debating, you have a partner. So it's important to talk with your partner, be your support structures, because in many of the cases, you don't have a lot of people to that. You don't have a lot of people to understand you. So it's important to have a support structure, and it's important to be clear of why you're doing something, why it's important to you, why you want it, so that you remind yourself every time that you want to quit and every time that things are looking good. I guess that's it. I mean, I do not have enough experience as life coach to give any more advice on that, but maybe someday even that.
No, but that's great, because you're talking from your own experience, and I think that that's very important, and it's also it's very important to ask for feedback, and I'm very glad that you said that, because sometimes we can think that it will bother the judge, or that it's too much to ask for feedback, but at the end it will make you improve, and it's great to see. It's great to know about your mistakes and see how you can improve. So that's really great. And also it's important that you have that you trust your partner, and I'm also glad that you mentioned that. And where did you meet your partner? Is he your friend?
Yeah.
A college, I mean, a university student?
So it might come as a surprise, but at this point in my life, most of my friends are debaters or previous debaters.
Mm-hmm.
So we've met at. So I've also previously been a board member of the Bulgarian Debate Association.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, if any of you are watching this from Bulgaria, uh, definitely join us and participate, because I think that throughout this conversation you can see how debating can help you.
Yeah.
But I actually had a great experience as a board member before I got specifically. Now when I'm doing something with debating, it's mostly competing. I've
Mm-hmm.
competed before that, but there was a 2 year span where most of what I did for debating was educational work, so doing workshops throughout the whole country.
Mm-hmm.
I've done like more than 50 workshops in more than 20 different towns and cities in Bulgaria.
Mm-hmm.
And we've also created like big competitions and tournaments throughout the country. So this is like a very hard work, and I got really close with the people who I was working with, and we shared a lot of the same passions and ideas, because we were doing it because we really believe that debating is something that is important for our society, and can help a lot of people mm, achieve a better part of their potential, become better critical thinkers. And that is because we've understood that regardless of what our perspective is, debating to a certain degree has changed our lives, and it has helped us become better people, better professionals, and just had a better approach to life, let's say, if that is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, because of that, I've actually gotten to know my partner and many of the people I've debated with.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the most important things is just like sharing the same values and sharing the same passion. If you
Mm-hmm.
have the same passion, it's very easy to click. You're going to have fights, you're going to have problems, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, you know you're on the same page. If you're on the same page, everything else it's easy. And yeah, uh, when you get to experience all of this, traveling around the country, you obviously bond, and you are able to meet multiple people from all over. And I think that's very important. It changes a lot your perspectives, even in your own country. Because let's say I'm from the capital, and in Bulgaria, there is a very big difference from, let's say, living in the capital and living in a small rural town,
Yeah.
just because of the economic conditions. So these perspectives are very important. My partner has grown up in a very small rural town. That means that like he has very different perspectives and things. This is actually very helpful sometimes in debating.
Mm-hmm.
It's also very helpful in terms of I think, and I'm getting a bit off topic here, but I think this is interesting.
Yeah, it's
One of
interesting.
the things that we use to our advantage extremely well in international competitions is our different perspectives, in terms of coming from an Eastern European country that has a lot of different problems than what a Western country might have. Let's say problems such as, of course, like let's say corruption. Corruption is a problem everywhere, but it's to a different degrees here. But also have different perspectives, and we're able to use it creatively, our situation, to come up with arguments that other teams just cannot anticipate, because they have never had that point of view.
Yeah.
And it becomes a very useful advantage,
Mm-hmm.
because I am fairly familiar with what's happening in, let's say, the UK or the United States, and
Mm-hmm.
because it's all over the world, I can see kind of the main general points of view. Most American debaters or English debaters have haven't even heard of Bulgaria, and
Oh,
don't
no.
really know about all of those things. And
Mm-hmm.
that's normal. I mean, it's definitely normal, but at the end of the day, it's also an advantage to have that different perspective, and how this might be, let's say, a topic might be not so problematic in the UK, but might be very problematic in Bulgaria or other Eastern European countries, and you need to think more globally, especially in these competitions. But yes, I warned you about this. The question was, how did I meet my partner? Look where we've gotten. This is one of the drawbacks of being a debater. You have to present both sides. So yeah, as I
No,
said, this.
but I'm glad because I didn't want to interrupt you because you were giving me all of this really interesting tips, and I think that this is one of the, like, I really wanted to ask you about different debating tips and advice. So it's really great. So don't worry. Also,
It's all according to plan, guys. Don't worry. It's all going according to plan.
yeah, yes, everything's great. How did you become a board member of the Bulgarian Debate Association?
You get elected by so we have there's multiple towns that have their own clubs, and let's say in Sofia there's multiple institutions that have their own clubs, like a university, a different school, etc., etc. So they all of them are part of the Bulgarian Debate Association. They
Mhm.
have representatives. So once every 2 years, we get together. There's an assembly, and you vote people that you want to basically be in the board of the association, who do everything pretty much from project management to uh, basically carrying waters to the competition to strategizing on how you're able to spend your budget, etc., etc.
Mhm.
So that's pretty much how it works.
It's pretty big. I mean, people chose you. That's really great.
Yeah, they also chose a lot of great people as well. So yeah, I don't have anything to add to that.
No, but it must be really interesting to work in an association like this, because you're promoting debate, you're helping young people, and that's very great. And
One of the proudest moments of my life are have been through the doing a lot of things for the debate association,
mhm,
from like basically creating very large scale tournaments with 400 plus people, etc., etc. To lastly, one of the things that we did is we had a debate in the um, basically national parliament in Bulgaria. That
mhm,
was like a very good opportunity to present debating to Bulgaria, etc., etc. So I guess it's an interesting thing that a lot of things that I'm very proud of actually haven't been winning debate competitions and debates at all, but mostly about like doing things that actually promote the idea of debating and all the good things that come for society with it.
that sounds incredible. It's truly inspiring to hear you talk about these things, because it's a whole learning process, it's a whole experience, and you're sharing your knowledge with other people, and this helps the community grow. So you're helping, like, you're not only helping your city, but you're also helping Bulgaria. So that's really great.
I
That's
really hope you're right.
no, but I mean, you're already doing so many great things. So yeah.
Uh, I think that, of course, like there are a lot of things behind. Like you are seeing me, there are multiple people who have done much more. I've gotten the opportunity to be a part of an association that has already been built to a certain degree. So there are multiple people around the history of this particular NGO that have done so much work. Nobody has gotten paid anything, and there have
Mhm.
been countless of hours of multiple people through the years. So I think that it's really an inspiring thing to see how it grows. I yeah, and how it changes people. I've like let's say I've become I've basically seen a whole generation of my high school now, them becoming them finishing high school, from them
Mhm.
like me teaching them when they were in the eighth grade or whatever, to them now trying to go into university, some of them like working, etc., etc. It's definitely, when you get the bigger picture, it's very a very inspiring experience, because you meet people and they say, like, they explain to you how debating in some way or another has changed their perspectives on things, and it's it's all you can hope for uh, when you're trying to make a difference in these situations.
That's really beautiful. It sounds lovely to see, to help people and then seeing them grow and become like really open-minded citizens. So that's really great, and it sounds very beautiful. Well, lastly, I would like to know if there are any projects that you're working on, if you're planning on participating in other competitions. Um, what are your plans for this year?
Well, I'm doing a lot of things at the moment. I'm probably going to participate in a consulting competition. That's a whole other field that is actually fairly connected to debating, even though it doesn't seem so. Um, I am still trying to help as much as I can the Bulgarian Debate Association. Of course, there are now new people that are
Mhm.
running things that are doing great, and kudos to them. Kudos to our national Bulgarian team, who did pretty well at the World Schools University Championship and are currently actually participating in international competitions. They are currently undefeated, so congrats to them. I am so very proud, and I haven't even coached them, so what more can you hope for them? And yeah, I'm going to participate in the World Debating Championship that is going to be in a year in South Korea. I hope that that goes well. And um, I might be cooking up a few things on my own in terms of maybe creating a podcast. We'll see about that. It's going to be fun year for sure, even with all of the circumstances. So that's pretty much it.
Well, that's really great. I wish you tons of luck with your projects, and I hope to hear your podcast soon if
And
you end up doing it.
we'll see. I'm not making any promises.
But that's okay. But that's great that you have big plans and then you're planning on keep on helping your community and participating in competitions. That's really great. And well, thank you for joining us today. It was very interesting and inspiring. And thank you to everyone who's watching. If you would like to be updated on our next workshops and articles, make sure to follow our Instagram page and Facebook page and to subscribe to our new YouTube channel. I hope that everyone has a great day, and I'll see you in our next workshop.